YouTube, welcome back. Today we're going to go through getting back into the gym, what the best approach is to getting back into training within the gym environment. Because luckily enough, gyms are finally going to be back open, which is great news. However, we need to be smart about our approach in getting back into training. Don't forget, if you do enjoy the video, please drop a like and a comment, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Now there's three main things we need to concern ourselves with. 1, intensity, 2, movements, and 3, recovery. I'm going to go through each one now and what it means for us in terms of getting back into training in the gym. Okay, intensity is pretty straightforward. When we're talking about intensity in this sense, we're talking about things such as weight being lifted. Okay. Now, obviously, when we're training from home, unless you had very good equipment, most of us will have not had anywhere near enough the same weight and equipment that we would have in a gym environment. Okay, and therefore, as a general sort of idea, the intensity within our home sessions will have been a lot lower than what they will have been previously, and they're going to be when we get back to the gym. Okay. Now, what this means is, because haven't been used to training at such a high intensity for the last 3-4 months, when we go back into the gym environment, trying to match that previous intensity of before lockdown as soon as we get back probably isn't the smartest idea. Okay, and what we need to do is actually build that intensity back up relatively slowly, maybe over a few weeks. Okay, so for example, within the first week back at the gym, you might take 60% of the weight that you were lifting previously before lockdown. Okay, now the percentage numbers I'm using here are just sort of guesstimates. You probably have to play around a bit on that first week and see how you're feeling. Okay, but we don't want to be jumping straight to 90% or 100% that first week, just because it probably isn't safe, and the last thing we want to be doing is injuring ourselves. Okay, so again, first week you might start at 60, second week you might bump it up to 75%, then that third week you might be bumping up to about 90%. Now, I don't put 100% there in terms of matching what we were lifting before lockdown, because you probably will see some drops in strength in comparison to before lockdown, and that might take a little bit longer to completely come back. And the reasons as to why we have seen that drop in strength is, 1, because of the drop in intensity over the last 3-4 months, but also because our bodies have not been used to particular movements with particular amounts of weight, which I'm going to come on to. Okay, so the reasons to why we will notice a drop in strength and not be able to meet that sort of max strength that we were lifting, or weight that we were lifting before lockdown, is 1, because of that drop in intensity, but 2, combine that with the fact that we might have lost this neuromuscular connection. So basically our body essentially being used to and knowing the pattern of certain movements. Okay, so for example, if you haven't had the equipment, the machines during lockdown, then your body will basically not be familiar now with those movements that you were previously doing. Okay, and a lot of being good at performing a certain exercise, having the strength to do that, is your body just knowing that movement pattern and becoming used to it. Okay, so when you go back now into a movement that your body isn't particularly as familiar with, it's going to take a little bit of time for your body to almost recognize or remember what it was doing previously for those strength levels to return. Okay, so one of the main things that we need to do when we go back into the gym, especially in those first few weeks again, as we build that intensity up, is really just make sure that we're giving our body time to get familiar with these exercises again, but make sure that our form execution within these movements is bang on. So essentially in those first few weeks, just think to yourself as though you're a beginner to training again, in terms of, thinking form, execution, overweight initially, and building that weight up. Thirdly, and lastly, we need to think about recovery. Okay, again, chances are, because intensity's been lower, potentially volume, might have been lower during lockdown, if you maybe weren't as motivated to train, maybe weren't training as often, as much. Our recovery during lockdown recovery needs during lockdown probably weren't as high because of those things. Okay, however, when we get back into a gym environment where intensity is going to be higher, volume potentially is going to be more, our recovery needs are going to be higher. Okay, so essentially we just need to make sure that our recovery protocols are optimal. Okay, so we need to make sure sleep routine and quality is bang on. We need to make sure nutritional intake is high enough to make sure recovery is good, nutritional quality is good, stress management is good, managing volume of training. Okay, so we need to make sure all these things are taken into account and we're making sure that these are optimal, so recovery is as good as can be, okay? If we make sure recovery is as good as it can be, if we make sure that we build up the first few initial weeks, then we're going to be in the best position to, one, not only return back to training and that sort of optimal performance as quickly as possible, but two, also minimise the risk of injury. Okay, last thing we want to be doing, having been out of the training in the gym for 5-6 months, is to then get injured and be out for a further 1-2 months. Okay, be patient with these first initial weeks. Follow these steps to make sure that you get back to optimal training as quickly as possible, and then you're going to be flying when you get back. Hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully those steps are nice, simple, straightforward, and easy to put into action. If you do have any questions on how to approach the gym when you get back, by all means do throw them in the comments below. And again, if you do enjoy the video, please drop a like and please do subscribe. Take care.